All right, Channel Surfers. Well, this is an exciting Wednesday in court. We have a verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs case. We have Kohberger changing his plea. I had meetings today. I did not know all of this stuff was going to go down. My plan was to be done, have my case filed, and hang out with my neighbors for a play date with my son this afternoon. But instead, I am here with you guys. I have watched the Kohberger plea. I kind of went real quick onto TikTok, went live. I don't really know how to use the live stuff yet. I will have that figured out by the 23rd of July, which is when we are going to see Kohberger back in court for sentencing. We're going to talk about that a little bit as we go through this plea. So basically, what happened today in the Kohberger case? We had the plea. The judge comes in. He sits down. He says the defendant is here and in custody. You see Bryan Kohberger sitting at a table with his legal representatives. He's wearing a suit and tie, so it's not easy to discern that he is in custody, but he has been permitted to dress out for this trial. He will be handcuffed and taken right back through the side door. He's not walking in and out off the streets. He is in custody. The bailiffs have escorted him to his table, and they will escort him back out to the holding cells after the hearing. Now, you have the prosecution at one table, you have the defense at the other table. The judge introduces everybody. For the record, he is just telling the court reporter and the later transcript that everyone is here. And let's see what happens. Kohberger's change of verdict hearing took place today in the Ada County Courthouse, and we are with the judge to entertain a change of plea. I like how he says that. Like, I don't have to take it. I don't have to agree to it, but I'll entertain it. Uh-oh. What do we do? Are you worried? Do you guys hear that? No outbursts or demonstrations. Be on your best behavior. I'm going to try. I'm not in the courtroom, though, so I can't play Pokemon Go and catch them all during the hearing. Would they even know? Wow. Wow.
And the ability for them.
That, guys, do not call the court. Do not call the court. We are privileged to be spectators in this case. We are privileged that they are allowing cameras in this case. We didn't even get that with Diddy. Do not bother the court. Look, these attorneys and these parties know way more about this case than we do. There is a gag order. You have to understand what we know is extremely limited, may or may not even be truthful, may or may not even be credible. We did not go through a trial where these facts were tested. We got a Dateline episode. Do not contact the court. That is not going to influence them. That is going to make this judge rightfully mad. Do not disrupt his day. This hearing already, the extra steps he has to go through to have media there, to have security there. This is already an extra burden on him. It's his job. I'm sure he is happy to do it, but he's got other cases. There are other people waiting for justice. Don't go in there with what you saw online and tell the judge what he should be doing. No, don't do that. Don't do that, guys. That's bad. I feel so bad for this judge right now. So yeah, I mean, I know the channel surfers aren't doing that. You guys are just hanging out. Well, look, I'm too lazy even to drive over to the courthouse. So there we go. I mean, I have to fly. I live in South Carolina. Whatever. You get the point. Y'all leave this judge alone, right? Absolutely. I like how he's saying this. He's saying that it's just as important for the victims to have a properly executed trial than it is for the rights of the defendant, because you want to make sure that the state is proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt, crossing their T's, dotting their I's, not violating gag orders that could be appealed. They have just as much of an interest in making sure there's as little loopholes as possible in a case that the victims do, as well as the defendant. It serves everyone's best interest for justice to be carried out, for our Constitution to make sure that this person is presumed innocent until proven or pleading guilty, and to make sure we get the right person. So yeah, I digress. It is important that we make sure that we don't have tunnel vision in these cases, that the police aren't just looking at somebody and saying, absolutely, it was this person. And there's definitely some questionable things in this case. We will see some of that during the plea today. I don't know that this was a slam dunk case. That is one of the reasons I'm sure the state considered in their plea. Another consideration are these gag orders. Arguably, the judge could have ruled to leave that information out. They were in place to ensure a fair trial. The defense from the get-go has tried to ensure a fair trial. They moved the venue. They have these long jury forms they're going to have the jury fill out. And they have the gag order. Because what you hear in the news, journalists are held to a certain standard. They have to make sure they have credible witnesses or credible sources. There are certain ethics in journalism. They aren't as strong as what is admissible evidence in a court of law. We have even higher standards. And in court, you have the chance to question those that are presenting allegations against you versus social media, where we don't have the ethics of journalism. We don't have the rules of evidence. We could just have speculation, complete speculation. And we've seen things like that throughout this case as well. For example, there was speculation that Bryan Kohberger had gone to Maddie's work. She worked at what they said was a vegan restaurant. Now, it turns out that it was a restaurant that did have vegan options, but the owner says we have no proof he was ever there. No credit card receipts, no video camera. There is nothing I have to link him to my establishment. So again, when we're in court, we want proof. We want proof. And in today's world, with security cameras, with the technology we have, usually you're going to find proof. It's hard to not have proof. So I digress. Let's continue watching. I wonder who was calling for people to do this. And re-listening to this, there are entitlements to have a speedy trial. If this court gets completely bogged down in one case and delays justice for other cases, you could start running into issues where you're not bringing these other cases fast enough and you're moving to dismiss because you're entitled to a speedy trial. Wow. I mean, this really effects of these calls definitely ripple beyond the Kohberger case. Absolutely. If you've ever seen, there's statues and paintings where you have Lady Justice. She is holding the scales and she has a blindfold on because we're here looking for the truth. We're not looking for public opinion. We are looking for credible evidence that shows what happened. Even if the public thinks otherwise, we need to prove it. This is a court of law. I love what he's saying. It just brings up this image to me of Lady Justice in the blindfold. Absolutely. In other words, I'm not even listening to y'all. Y'all are blowing up my phones and I'm not even going to listen to it. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my staff's time. This poor judge. Ruh-roh. Where appropriate to law enforcement, methinks that is somebody threatening the court. Y'all, come on. I know we all are excited about this trial. We all feel so connected to the families. We feel so bad for what happened, but that, oh my goodness. What are y'all saying? I hope it's not you guys. It's not the channel surfers. I know it's not the channel surfers. I mean, we like to watch our trash TV and we're those little raccoons in 90 Day Hunt for Love, watching Jennifer and Cole hooking up, but this is a court of law. I mean, we can be fun on the YouTubes, but don't go bringing our antics into court. Knock it off, guys. Knock it off. In any case, this isn't Facebook jail. Ooh, story time. Oh, welcome to law school, guys. Absolutely. Absolutely. In the United States, this is how it works. Now, interestingly, I was reading about this recently. In other countries, sometimes you have the courts doing the investigation. So different than it is here. But here, it's up to the prosecutor whether to seek those charges, whether to continue to seek those charges, whether to drop the charges. And they're supposed to be doing this ethically and in fairness. And they don't have to seek a death penalty. And the court can't force them to seek the death penalty. Again, the judge, he's seen a lot of this stuff in this case, but we didn't even have a trial. We didn't get to the point where we were admitting evidence and seeing what allegations could be proven. I know some of y'all aren't happy that he's not going to be dead, but there's so little we know about this case. Part of that gag order, part of trying to make sure that the defendant had the right to a fair trial under our Constitution, that has put so much mystery into this. From what is out there now at this current moment, I don't know that the state had proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There are still questions there. And there may have been questions for a jury. This way, we know that Kohberger will serve life in prison and that there will be no appeals. There will be no continued waste of taxpayer resources. Other cases can be solved. We're not going to have decades of appeals over this because this case was primed for those. And I might just kind of speed up and get to the interesting parts. So we'll be right back with the next interesting part. Right now, he's just saying, leave him alone. Leave him alone, guys. So our judge goes on to explain his role in the judiciary as the judge in this case is to make sure that the defendant is giving his plea voluntarily with knowledge of what he's doing. So we will see that when we get to the beginning of this plea, he is going to go through very standard waiver, basically very standard disclosure for the defendant. He's gonna ask him questions. Did your attorney explain this to you? Were you happy with your attorney's representation? Do you understand the consequences? Do you understand you are waiving the right to a jury? You are waiving the right to appeals. You see all of that as the plea starts, and that happens in every case where you have pleas. The judge is also talking about his ability to reject a plea. The judge doesn't have to take a plea. He says that if the sentence is given at the same time, then he can reject it. And at this point, they are actually going to be scheduling sentencing later down the road on the 23rd. And then the judge says if the defendant doesn't plead guilty to every element of the crime, which when I was watching that was a little bit different than how we do things down here. Usually in the pleas I've done, the state gets up, they present their facts, and then the judge asks, do you understand what you're doing? All the good questions. How do you plead? In this case, we actually see the judge walk Kohberger through every part of the crime, every single fact the state would have to prove. So I thought that was interesting. That's not how I've seen it done before. And I'm just going to kind of recap and give my commentary on what's going on. And when we get to something exciting, I'll put it up on the screen. But the judge is defending why this has happened so quickly. I know there's been a lot of criticism about this didn't give the families much time to process what happened. They got these letters on Friday night, and then on Wednesday, they are taking a change of plea. The judge, he feels bad for the families. We all feel terrible for the families, but he has to weigh that. He said that they were in the process when he got that call of them starting voir dire of 10,000 potential jurors. My mind is blown. 10,000. They really want to ensure a fair case. 10,000. The administrative expense, the time that takes from the court, that is astronomical. And that is a huge jury pool. I've never personally seen anything like that. 10,000. Wow. So yeah, the judge here, he said, as soon as I heard about this change in plea, I wanted to get things going. I want to get this plea in, get this case off my docket, tell these 10,000 people you don't have to drive into Ada County and go eat at the Waffle House. We got this handled. He wanted to get the ball rolling. He wanted to stop the expense. He wanted to stop the drain on time, because until this gets in, they are still going to proceed forward as if they're going to trial, because Kohberger could change his plea. So that's where we're at. This is why it's moving so fast. While he feels bad for the family, there are other people that deserve their cases to go through. There's other people that could be jurors in other cases. This one, it's got such national attention. They really have tried for a fair trial here, and the cost of it's astronomical. So yeah, I get it. I get why this is going through so quickly, and they're not doing the sentencing today. They are saving that for the 23rd, because he had so much time on his calendar set aside for picking this jury. I mean, can you guys imagine 10,000 people? Like, my high school class probably had 400. Can you imagine? Not my class, but like my high school. Anyway, that is an insane amount of people. That's like, if I think about college football, that's like a eighth of Williams-Brice Stadium. My college football that holds 80,000. That is a huge amount of people. I digress. Continuing. I just realized how country we must be in South Carolina. The judge is saying voir dire. We say voir dire. Or at least I do. And that's how I was taught to say it in law school. Voir dire. Also, I beg the court's indulgence. If anybody watched the Murdaugh case, I beg the court's indulgence. We are very formal. It's always interesting to see things in different jurisdictions. I think this next part is a great ruling by the judge. He asks everybody to please remain in their seats until the family, the victims, until those people are escorted out first. It's enough chaos today. Anybody who had traveled here had to just put everything down and get there fast. Absolutely. That's very respectful. And it's the least that the court could do is to give them the space to exit without everybody cramming through that door. So I think that's a great judgment. Another thing that I'm seeing here, sorry, sidetrack ADHD, nobody's wearing bow ties. We do that here. I mean, you'd probably have half the guys in this courtroom in bow ties if y'all were in South Carolina, but no bow ties. But there are some very nice looking people in the Midwest. Wow. You are a beautiful congregation of people. All right, so we're getting into the plea. This is where the judge is making sure that Bryan Kohberger is of the right mind to enter into a plea, seems and appears mentally capable. He understands the consequences. And while I see this a lot of cases plea out. I'm now realizing a lot of cases don't plea out in the national spotlight. Usually these big cases go to trial and we're not seeing the pleas. So come on, channel surfers, let's watch together and I will walk you through it. Oh, so the judge is asking the defense, do you feel like you have been able to do all the discovery that you believe you need to do? It took that attorney a second to answer. And if you can see the look on her face, that was hard for her to say. She knows she's got to say it to get through this plea. She has been saying this whole time that she did not feel like she had enough time for discovery. Discovery is all of the evidence that the state sends to the other side that they have. And in a criminal case, it's whether or not they intend to use it in trial, any of that evidence. It could be exculpatory to get the defendant off. Failure to send that over, that's a Brady violation. It's violation of the constitutional rights. It could be, I mean, it's just stacks of stuff. She talked about the terabytes of evidence she had and has been going on about how she needs more time. So yeah, if you guys heard that little pause there, that one was hard for her to answer. If you told him to tell the truth, are you telling the truth about the discovery? I'm not saying that she's committing perjury. I just, she was asking for a continuance last week. Anyway, and you see Kohberger looks over at his attorney, For guidance, he might be asking, do I stand up? What do I do? She confirms whatever it was that he asked. So he had a question. He wants to make sure that he is being respectful. I want to see their faces so bad right now. So if the judge rejects the plea, he is making Kohberger admit to every element of this crime. And that can be used against him later in trial. This is not privilege. He's supposed to tell the truth. Chilling. This is about to be chilling because the judge is about to walk us through the elements of the case. The elements are every point that the prosecution would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to get a conviction on the crime. The chilling details. So we're going right into competency. Are you competent to give this plea? Have you been in the jail drinking the jail-made wine? You doing any drugs in there? Like, you're okay to make this. You get what's going on. You're with us, right? Because you have to be competent to accept a plea. There, in South Carolina, at least, there's a case, the Jeter case, and I've had to have people tested for competency before we accept a plea under that. You have to enter into it freely and willingly. So just making sure, you're not too messed up to plea. I will skip through this part. So we've got burglary, that is punishable by up to 10 years. And then we've got life in prison for the homicide charges. Also for the murder charges, it appears that it is a life sentence with a mandatory minimum of 10 years for each of the 4 counts for murder. They also talk about restitution. So what restitution is, it's a monetary penalty to make the victims, well, not whole. You can't fix this. But as far as the burglary, it's $50,000 in restitution for each of the homicides. It's also $50,000. And he would be required to pay that if he's able to, if he has assets. He's probably not going to be making a ton of money in prison. But as far as the burglary, you still have living victims. You still have roommates that were in the house that day. So those are the restitution requirements. Now, it's interesting. The judge didn't say life without parole, but I do believe that's supposed to be part of this plea. So restitution, that's part of the criminal case. The judge also says in Idaho, each of the victims, he could be required to pay $5,000 each in excess of the restitution as a civil judgment being imposed. So a little bit different with modes of enforcement, who's enforcing those judgments. But so there's that as well. That's interesting. So giving this plea to a felony, the judge is letting Kohberger know he also cannot possess a firearm. He cannot vote. He cannot serve as a member of the jury. There are a lot of rights that are being handed over. These are the consequences of this plea and of these crimes. I promised you if it got interesting, we'd get back into it. So we have the judge going through the plea with Kohberger. Let's watch. Okay, so the judge is saying that he's not bound by the plea agreement, but in this case, he's pleading to the maximum charge on every count. So they're just taking death penalty off the table, and he is taking the maximum sentence on everything. If you're going into a plea and your client is getting a reduced sentence or a lesser included charge, then that can be kind of scary, that the judge could reject the plea or come back and say, you know what, you thought you were getting 10 years, you're getting them for life. Sometimes you want to call ahead and be like, hey, how's this going to look? Anyway, but he's taken the maximum sentences. So from that aspect, I don't see why the judge is going to deny this plea or deny this sentence. I don't think we're getting a lesser sentence either. I think we're getting what we see here. And we'll find out on the 23rd. But the judge is saying, I don't have to even take that. Could give you a lesser sentence. What he can't do is force a death sentence. That is up to the prosecution. That is what he was explaining earlier. Just trying to think of a situation where someone would promise him something to plead to life in prison. Who would be like, hey, do this and I'll do that. Like, what are you training in for that? Really? Anyway. Oh, nobody's told him to be untruthful. So when we see this plea, he's swearing this is the truth. He is under oath. Chilling. Bryan right up here. No emotion, so robotic. So it looks like in Idaho, in the Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 12 is just a court rule that addresses the timing and manner of motions when any defenses are supposed to be raised for appeal. Again, he's waiving his right to appeal, but the judge is just making sure, is there anything that you want to add? So he doesn't have the right to appeal any decision made by this trial court or whatever sentence this trial court decides to give him. Now, trial court cannot seek the death penalty. That is up to the prosecution. And he's already pleading to the maximum on all the sentences. So what about rulings that aren't made by this court? Like those Brady motions we talked about. We find out later that there was evidence that wasn't presented. Well, that could be a reason to try to get a new trial. So just hypothetical land. Good question. I wonder how long this has been in the works. There have been a lot of recent motions that the defense has lost, including motions for a speedy trial. So he's honestly, though, probably been thinking about this the whole time. If he has the chance to plea and save his life, death penalty off the table, is that something you'll take? Given your choices, going to trial and leaving it up to a jury, and possibly dying or not, is it in your best interest? Think about that. How would you answer that? Let me know how you would answer that. Even, and I'm not saying he's innocent, but even if you were completely innocent, what would you do? What would you do? It always feels good when they ask that and your client's like, yeah, consequences, you're going down for life. Everything. Did you ask for Burger King? Did you get Burger King? I'm wondering. Is an attorney like a genie in the bottle? I'm kidding. Did you ask to get let out of jail? Apparently not.
Guilty plea advisory.
A written advisory. And why did you use crayon? They probably don't even have crayon in jail. Like I had one client and he was an amazing artist, drew some absolutely gorgeous pictures for me while he was waiting for trial. And he was using like the dye from candy, from Skittles or M&Ms. And the art that he did was absolutely incredible. I just could not believe the creativity in there. Memory lane. Have to waive that right to a jury trial. I once had a judge tell me that we need to decide right there if we are going to ask for a jury trial. And this is like the first appearance. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, well, let's see the discovery first. You know, it was a complicated case. I thought perhaps a bench trial might be better. The judge might be able to understand this better. It was just one of those cases where I couldn't believe that the state was even bringing it. I'm like, how did you even come up with these charges anyway? And the judge was like, no, you got to decide now if you want a jury trial, which I'm sitting there thinking, but you've got to ask him if he agrees to waive the jury trial if he takes a plea. Anyway, also, anytime I'm talking about cases, I'm definitely changing some things. It's going to be extremely vague. The facts will be changed a little bit. You would never identify these people because of confidentiality. So I do want to put that out there because that story I just told, there were little things that were slightly different. Also a little bit different and very vague. Each element. So he's about to go through the elements, those pinpoints in the crime that God proved to put him in jail for life beyond a reasonable doubt. That high standard. Talking about the rules of evidence. You get to cross-examine witnesses, confront your accusers. Can't do that when somebody sings up on social media. Can't do that necessarily with the news, but in a courthouse, you have the right to figure out, do you have another motivation? Why are you saying this? Where did you get this information? Is this your personal knowledge, or is this something you heard from Bobby Bo down the street? And you know what? This part's getting a little boring, so I will fast forward, recap. We'll get to the exciting part. Elements. Let's find out the elements. All right. Judge is going to break down these charges. What does the state have to prove if we were at trial? What do they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt? Every single aspect of the case. Let's start with the burglary. And in burglary, that is unlawfully entering the place with the intent to commit a felony therein. So in this case, it's specifically murder. Is anybody else feeling a little bit sick to their stomach? I mean, I haven't eaten lunch today. Wanted to jump up here and watch this with you guys, but this is horrific. I feel so bad for the victims and the families here. What happened was horrific. He has the blankest look on his face. It's like he's mentally detached or something. He's listening to this judge. I'm feeling sick that this happened to these people. Wow, just the vacant look on Bryan Kohberger's face right now. He is sitting there. He's wearing a white long sleeve button up shirt, a tie. He's sitting very, very straight up, and he's just kind of staring at the judge. It almost is one of those looks where he might be looking past him, like it's just glaring. But nothing, no smile, just sitting there kind of nodding his head. So I'm just looking at these people. Attorneys are sitting very, very still. Man, with my ADHD, sitting still is hard, but you could hear a pin drop. Wow, everybody in the courtroom is looking. Okay, so it appears that because they need the facts that prove the crime, he has signed, as of yesterday, a document that lays out these facts. Likely it was written and provided by the state, I would imagine, where he's agreeing that that's what happened. I wonder if that's going to be under seal. I would like to know what it says. I would imagine it probably says something very similar to what we're about to hear the state say when they lay out the facts. But I'd definitely like to look at this. Yeah. He is sitting very straight up giving this testimony. His attorneys are sitting very still, looking at the judge. On the defense side, on the prosecution side, the attorneys, for the most part, are looking at the judge. One of the attorneys, he's slumped in his chair. He's looking down. He's feeling this moment. I think we all are. Just the horror of that night, what these families are going through. I would imagine it's a rough spot. We know that a few of the families have come forward and they feel let down by this. This is a win. This guy is serving the maximum time, as long as the judge awards that under this plea. But it's hard to disappoint people, especially being like a type A personality, which a lot of attorneys have. Not all attorneys. There are definitely attorneys that don't have the type A. Definitely ones. But I can see he's hurting right now. This prosecutor, this is hard for him. Definitely hard. And then the other prosecutor, the lead guy, he is sitting there taking notes. What if something falls through at the last minute? Remember, Kohberger is waiving his right to self-incrimination here. Him admitting these things can be used against him later. His attorney's writing this down so he can know where in the transcript to go find it. Put it into that file. I see another attorney, a couple attorneys with their laptops out. That is how I like to take notes because my handwriting is atrocious. Sometimes I'm like, what did I write? And she goes, I don't know, you wrote it. Start typing. So I type a lot in it. I do that faster anyway. We
Idaho.
got a few
Did you
prosecutors
kill and
taking
murder
notes.
Ethan?
And it's interesting. The defense, they're looking at the judge. It appears that most of the prosecution is looking at Bryan as he gives this testimony directly, as well as most of the people in the galley. Most of the people sitting watching this, they're looking at Bryan as he confesses to these crimes. But his attorneys are just staring straight at the judge like, okay, probably not all crap, because their guy gets to live, and that they've been fighting for that. But also like, all right, so this is the recitation of the factual basis. You know what? This seems kind of slow. Let's speed it up. Hey guys, want to speed this up a little bit? It's afternoon now. Right, just listen to it a little bit faster. 1.5. Okay, so we're going to get something different than what we may have been familiar with from the probable cause affidavit. Of course, we would expect that. Probable cause affidavit doesn't even have to be based on admissible evidence. It's just, somebody might have committed a crime. But interesting. Let's see what we find out. He's going to give us an overview. March of 22, while Kohberger was at his family's house in Pennsylvania, he got a K-bar knife and sheath on Amazon and sharpener. So at the end of June, so in March, he gets the knife and sheath in Pennsylvania. At the end of June, he goes to Pullman, Washington, right across the state line from Moscow, 15-minute drive. We looked it up on Google Maps. Now, his reason was to get a PhD in criminal justice at WSU. So in July 9th of 2022, that's when we're starting to see the pings off of the cell tower that also services 1122 King Road. And I did talk about this in some of my videos. Cell tower pings are not GPS. It is an area of service that's usually 3 to 5 miles radius, but it can cover up to 20 miles in rural areas. Kohberger's house was within 20 miles of the King Road house. But I don't think this would be a rural area. These are both college campuses. They're going to be a little bit more busy. But the intersection that he got pulled over in front of, that was right in front of the closest 24-hour grocery store to his house. There was also a 24-hour Walmart that had liquor and beer, and Idaho has cheaper taxes on spirits than Washington. Washington has the highest excise tax in the country. So could he just be going to get his margarita and his phone is pinging off the cell tower? Sure. Yeah. Could he be going to that grocery store because he moved from Pennsylvania and he's in Idaho? Absolutely. But we knew this. We knew all of this from the Dateline episode. So nothing new yet. Nothing new yet, channel surfers. Okay. So between July 9th and November, so July, August, September, October, November, between 10 and 4, his phone pinged off of that tower 22 times. Again, could have been trips to the grocery store about 4 times a month. Once a week, go to the grocery store or go to that liquor store because it costs less than your college student. That's a pretty big time frame. If you're running errands in that area, you're actually running errands. If you're not door dashing it, but he's probably a broke college student. I don't know that he's using the Walmart deliveries. Anyway, well, I guess they use the torch anyway, but that means he's been in that area. It does not mean he's right in front of the house on King Road. It means he's somewhere within a few miles radius. There's a shopping center right there, right in front of the intersection that he got pulled over for not having a seatbelt. So, you can see it in the Dateline, see that 24-hour grocery store in the Dateline. Exactly what I was saying. The state does not have evidence that directly puts him at 1122 or puts him in contact with any of the residents of 1122. Nothing. No social media links. We knew that from the Dateline, that there was no connection that they could find between him and the victims. And I think for the prosecution's case, this is definitely something that you are considering when you take this plea. This guy's going to plea out to everything but death. And we might have a problem here in our case. Motive. You don't have to prove motive, but people are going to want to know why you randomly walked into a house and killed 4 people by hand that you had no connection to. But also this part right here, they did not make that clear in the Dateline. I've tried to make this clear in my videos. There's nothing that puts him at 1122. There is some DNA on a knife sheath, but the cell phone pings, it just means he's in that location. So he's pulled over in Moscow. There's an apartment address in Pullman. Again, you're basically in the same town. This is like when I lived on the edge of Charlotte. You just kind of consider it all one area. Your stores are just right down the road when it's 15-minute drive. They did say that he had a white Hyundai Elantra. I don't know if this was the seatbelt ticket. There was another time that he got pulled over on the Dateline episode, but we're going to the date of the crime. We did not know that from the Dateline. So the Dateline shows that the phone left the residence and then was turned off. Was he going for a hookup? Nobody wants to admit to it. I'm just kidding. Did the phone die while he's out stargazing? I did not know that it left the residence though. So this is new. Turned off at 2:54. Did not come back on until 4:48. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Let me try to fix that real quick. All right, channel servers. Sorry, I just took a little break because my 4-year-old wandered in here, wanting to hang out. So, I hope I didn't delete anything important. Hopefully, this is all very congruent when I pieced it together. All right, back to where we were. Attempts to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon. We did hear about that in the Dateline episode. Did we know whether or not he was on a student computer? Because, I mean, if it's something he had to get back to the school, he might be like also getting rid of like all his like freaky deaky stuff or his murder stuff in light of the plea. But without the plea, what might the defense say? He didn't want his professors to know he had been looking at porn on the websites, ordering the flashlights. Anyway, he went, they messed that up. They said he went to Idaho to change his registration. He went to Idaho and Pullman to change his registration to Washington. No, he went to Pullman, Washington to change his registration to Washington. I was about to say, wait a minute, you got Idaho plates? No, this guy misspoke. He's an Idaho prosecutor. It's okay. You just say in Idaho. Just like I'm used to saying state when there's prosecution agency and I mess it up and I don't say federal, like in the Diddy case. Anyway, Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. What? Where are we going? Yeah, but that Dateline episode showed a front license plate on the traffic stop you didn't mention. Did somebody see my videos? Somebody over there on the prosecution team. Hey guys, how you doing, buds? You guys are doing great. Good job. They totally left that part of the Dateline out. That is insane. And they talk about the front plates. Whoa. Hey guys. Okay. So at this part, it's starting to get into the boring stuff. They did the trash pull. They pulled stuff out of the trash can in his parents' house. They took that and they submitted it to CODIS. CODIS is the police registry, which as part of this plea, Ryan will need to submit his DNA to CODIS and pay for that. But they did a search of that and they couldn't find anything. So they did this little sneaky thing that has been the subject of some of these defense motions. They went to like Ancestry, DNA, 23andMe, something like that, where the terms of service say this is not to be used by the police or investigative agencies. This is to be used by private individuals. It's a violation of our terms of service, blah, 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 blah. And the defense tried to say, well, that should be kept out. And the judge said, well, that should go in. So that has been set for appeal. If there was an appeal, the fact that that evidence came in, that is sitting there to be appealed. You have to raise the argument in the lower court in order to appeal it later. So let me just get to a more interesting part. Where it's about done, but blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that was pretty much it for the prosecution's facts. The court is going to find that Kohberger is of a free mind to take this plea. All right, that's it. The court accepts the plea. He directs it to be entered. So the end of this plea, basically the judge is setting up the date for sentencing. It's just scheduling matters. Parties, they're all like, okay, yeah, we got time for it. We don't have to go through 10,000 jury voir dire questionnaires. So, yeah, you want to do it in August 4th, which is when they were supposed to start voir dire, or you want to do it July 22nd, 23rd, had a few days there. They all settle on the 23rd. Now the state says we want to make sure that families can get here to have some words. They should be able to speak at this hearing, to speak to the defendant. And they've let them know that it could be on those dates, and sooner the better. So 23rd, I'm going to set my calendar. It could go over until the 24th. I will be covering that. I will try to figure out how to do live things before then. Hold, bear with me. I'm trying. And yeah, we will see you later this week on Remote Reality with the Poop Cruise. We're going to see you with a Diddy update. I'm going to go right into that in just a minute. And then we'll have True Crime Saturday on Saturday. But this is our special edition, the Kohberger plea. And I'll be right back at you in just a minute with the Diddy. The Diddy do it. We got a verdict. We have a verdict. All right, channel surfers, thanks for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe. I love watching these shows with you. Love watching the trials with you. I was really excited to cover Kohberger. So, I mean, this will be a lot faster. We won't be sitting here for a month. Wow. That was powerful. That was powerful. That was hard to watch at times. And to see him admit to that, to see the court make him admit to every element of the crime, what do you guys think? What did you think? Do you think that it was a good idea for the state to take this plea where he's agreeing that he did all of it and getting the maximum sentence? All they're doing is taking the death penalty off the table. We're saving the appeals. We're saving these witnesses from having to testify. Obviously, we know what side I'm on. Or do you think he deserves death? And not only does he deserve death, but everything that comes with that. The decades in prison, waiting on the sentence. But love to know what you guys think about this plea, this unexpected plea that has turned over my Wednesday. All right, you guys, I am out of here. I'm going to try to get this edited minimally and published. I'm going to go eat something, and I will be back with some Diddy updates. And tomorrow we are going to be recording the Poop Cruise. I've been promising Poop Cruise. It's coming. All right, channel servers, thanks for listening. Bye.